Jesus.
Now to Baltimore, and a close call for a city on edge Monday when an armed suspect's encounter with police near the site of last week's riots almost led to more trouble. Police arrested a man with a handgun that fired when he dropped it. No one was injured, but officials had to tamp down reports from the ground that the suspect had been shot by police, which did not happen. Joining us now, attorney for Freddie Gray's family, Billy Murphy, who joins us now. The police union is calling for a... Good morning, good morning. The police union is calling for a special prosecutor alleging conflicts of interest with campaign donations to Marilyn Mosby, including your own. What do you say to that?
You mean the same police union that itself gave $3,500 to Marilyn Mosby's campaigin?
That one. That could be that one.
That's a pot calling the kettle black.
It might be, but do you think that there's, you know, given the fact that, well, you did give money, is there a conflict?
Where's the conflict? Nobody's pointed it out to me.
Okay. The conflict.
I mean, can somebody articulate what the conflict was?
And she is now prosecuting, or she has now had 6 cops arrested in his death. I mean, you see the conflict.
Where is the conflict? No, I don't. I don't see a conflict. Can you articulate it for me?
You should work for the Clinton campaign.
Why does supporting a prosecutor politically create a conflict when that prosecutor wants to prosecute somebody whose family I represent, or who has harmed my family as a client?
With all due respect, I think that it's fair to ask about a potential conflict, is it not?
No, I don't see the conflict. Nobody has articulated in the entire media what that conflict is. There's an allegation that there is a conflict. Mm-hmm. What is the conflict? How is Marilyn Mosby prevented or impaired from doing the right thing because I represent the victim too? I don't see the conflict.
Okay, well, I think some might say that there is a conflict because you were supporting her financially, that the two, I mean, I don't want to be the one to make, I personally support what she's done as well.
But I don't see how that creates a conflict. So,
it might create the impression of a conflict, and we're asking you about that.
But what
you
conflict?
Don't see it.
I mean, no, I don't, and no one can articulate it.
Okay, I've tried to. Does
Anybody?
anyone here?
John Heilman? Willie Geist?
Well, yeah, the conflict, I think it's pretty obvious. Or the perception of it, which is that if you give money to someone, they might act on your behalf or act in your favor in a case.
Well, then why didn't she act in favor of the police union? I don't get it.
That's a good point.
All right. Well, we'll move on now.
I don't mean to befuddle everybody. I mean, if the conflict is there, it ought to be clear enough to articulate.
We were just asking about the fact that if you gave money to her campaign, does it put you two in an awkward position and maybe impact the fairness of the case? And, you know, I appreciate your answering back. You don't need to be condescending about it, but I can ask you about a conflict if you have given money to Marilyn Mosby's.
Go ahead, trust me. The last thing I would be on this or any other show is condescending.
Okay.
People allege a conflict but then can't articulate it. And so I find it really impossible to deal with a conflict that can't be articulated.
All right, well,
I don't hear the articulation of it.
Just because you keep saying that we haven't articulated it doesn't mean that we haven't articulated that there is many times in politics, and there has been for years and years and years, the suggestion that somebody, a lobbyist, gives a politician a certain amount of money, and there's always a question of, was your vote influenced by that money? This is basic politics 101, and I think we've talked it out.
But when both sides of an issue give money, and they're essentially similar amounts, where is the conflict?
Well, that's a good answer, and let's just leave it there and actually move on to more important matters. How's the family doing right now, and how do they feel about the events of the past 3, 4, 5 days?
Well, thank you for asking, and the family is gratified that people all over the country are concerned about their well-being. And that's because it was senseless for Freddie Gray to die. And I think about that everybody can agree. And so the family appreciates the outpouring of support that they're getting and the grief that is being shared by the American public.
And is the family in the wake of coping with his death? I've seen some interviews with them. They seem so unbelievably beautifully articulate on what they want for Baltimore and what they want to come out of this. Do they feel that justice is being served, and what are their hopes and outlooks for the case as it moves forward?
This is an unusual family. This is an unusual family because it wants the investigation and the prosecution to go where the true facts lead it. And they're not asking for a conviction. They want the judge and the jury to react to the facts as they have been developed and as they will be proved in a courtroom. And that's all they want. They're not out ahead of the curve saying that he did this or he did that, or the police did this or the police did that. They're sitting back and they're hopeful and they're prayerful that justice will be done in this case, whatever that is.
Mr. Murphy, it's Willie Geist. I would add my condolences if you'd pass them along to Freddie Gray's family as well, and ask you if you can shed any more light on what may have happened, not only in the van, we've heard what Ms. Mosby has said about that, but also before Freddie got into the van. Did he have an injury before he entered the van?
Well, we haven't yet, and this is puzzling to us, gotten a copy of the autopsy report that everyone else seems to have had involved in this investigation. And under the statutory requirements of Maryland, we're entitled to see that autopsy before anybody else does. And so we're waiting to see it, and we're waiting to see what the physics of the injury to the body indicate in terms of whether or not the injury occurred immediately upon arrest or at some time later. And everyone is waiting to see it as well, because only until you get it can you have a rational basis to have an opinion about it. So we have to wait like everyone else, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much for being on the show this morning. Good luck to you with everything. Billy Murphy Jr. On tomorrow's show...
Thank you very much.
Thank you. On tomorrow's show, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio will be here on set. Look forward to that. Up next, new details are flowing in surrounding Sunday's shooting at a controversial Muhammad art exhibit in Texas. We'll talk to the town's mayor about whether the gunman slipped through the cracks. Keep it right here on Morning Joe.